Hi everyone, and welcome to the Franchising Matters video series brought to you by Reshift Media. My name's Steve Bures, and I'll be your host. I'm joined today by Robert Bruski, who's co-founder and chief executive officer for Ctrl V, which is North America's first, and by the way, the world's largest, virtual reality video arcade franchise. With specific and proprietary designs around B2B and B2C modeling, business has been changing the location-based entertainment industry for some time. Robert's also the co-founder of Good Company Productions, which is a music production company that puts on concerts, shows, and festivals, acts as a talent buying representative, and also provides artist management and representation opportunities to musicians. He has so much involvement in the community, I couldn't possibly list them all. But what I did want to mention from what I know of Robert is that he's a competitive billiards player, a Sanshao, I get that right? Yeah,
yep.
Sanshao kickboxing fighter, a big mountain skier, and the frontman for a rock band. So I have no idea how he found time to be here, but we're very happy you're here, Robert. Thank you.
What's shaking, Steve? So excited to be here. Let's rock and roll. I can't wait.
Well, I don't know if I can keep up. Frontman for a rock band, I'm a little intimidated. I'm not going to lie.
It's no big thing. I mean, you just got to carry the whole band. You always got problems with the drummers and the bassist and the lead guitarist is going off on solos. Who knows what's going on?
Well, let's start with Ctrl V. So obviously I know Ctrl V, awesome franchise concept. But for anyone watching or listening that might not know the brand, tell us a bit about the company.
All right. Well, it's pretty easy to explain this. It's the best thing. It's the best thing since butterscotch pudding. But ultimately, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a virtual reality arcade, and I'll put that in air quotes here because although people can come into our brick and mortar facilities and play games, like if you want to shoot zombies or whatever, we've got that. But outside of that, there's so much more. I mean, we get homeschool families and school field trips that come in to learn chemistry, astronomy, biology, all in VR. We've got date nights. We had our second marriage proposal in VR this past August. Yep. We got corporate events, birthday parties, escape rooms, or in some places they're called locked rooms. These are awesome because you're not bound by the physical constraints of a real room, right? Like you can crawl through, air ducts and all this sort of stuff. We get senior citizens come in that wouldn't be caught dead in a bikini, but they're swimming with whales or playing mini golf with their grandkids. It's really, truly like an end-to-end location-based entertainment venue. It's just wonderful.
Oh, so much fun. And interesting, the educational aspects, everything you talked about sounds pretty awesome. So,
well, thank you.
Yeah, good business to be in for sure.
You bet. It's fun too.
Oh, no doubt. Well, so tell me, like, obviously the long list of accolades, Ctrl V being one of many entrepreneurial activities you've had over your lifetime. Like, what makes Robert successful? Like, your energy is off the charts. Anyone watching for the last 30 seconds has figured that out. What makes Robert successful?
Well, I don't know that I would consider myself successful, but if those are the words you're putting in my mouth, I'll try to answer that question for you. I learned a long time ago, through a career in many different industries. Like I've been on Wall Street, I've been in Hollywood, I've been in Silicon Valley, all this sort of stuff that when you open up YouTube and you see that friendly dude sitting there with the wads of cash on his hotel bed and like Rolls Royce pulling up to a jet, like that's all smoke and mirrors. Where you're going with this is actually like that's your end goal, maybe. Possibly. But to achieve that end goal, it's all about grit, moxie, and hustle. Ideas are a dime a dozen. It's the execution that counts. Everyone can come up with something or a new idea or, point the company in this direction. But unless you're doing the work and you're hustling to make it happen, those are the things that, make the leaps and bounds from one stage to the next. Right. So to me, it's always about like, what more? I saw this interview, or it was maybe an internet clip with Kobe Bryant, and somebody was like, "Hey, how much do I need to practice?" And he's like, "More." Okay, but when do I stop? More. It's like you got to keep going. You don't get this far to only get this far. And specifically when things go wrong or go bad, like that's when the tide rolls out. You see who's been swimming naked, right? You gotta. That's my thing. You gotta just. I don't know how to explain it, but it's just this drive, And the thing is, a lot of people talk about like bravery or courage, and some people talk about motivation. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to do something anyways, and you're not afraid, then you don't have bravery or courage. You have bravery or courage in the face of fear. Same thing goes with motivation. If you're going to go to work, or you're going to go, help a franchisee or whatever it is, and you're happy to do it, that's not motivation. Motivation is when you don't want to do it, when you don't want to get out of bed, when you don't want to hustle, when you don't want to do the work, and you get up and do it anyways. That is motivation. So this fairy dust of buzzwords these days, I think, are getting misinterpreted.
Oh, I love that. Motivation is when you don't want to do it. That's fantastic. Well, and so, how do you find time in your life for all these things, Robert? Like, obviously motivation, I hear that, but like, that was a long list of stuff I rattled off. Like, do you sleep?
Yeah, absolutely. I get a full 6 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I'm not kidding you. And the thing is, like, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. And it really depends on where you allocate that, right? So I have this secret, and this sounds super cliche, and everyone's like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Everyone says that. But I follow this process called go, no, do. All right. So the first thing, when you wake up and you do your sort of morning ritual, whether it's, going to work out or saying some prayers or whatever it is, once you're ready to start the workday, the first thing you do is figure out where you need to go. So you look at your calendar, which is vigilantly updated and like immaculate. So you have a mental picture of where you need to be in different places, and you can factor in drive time and all that sort of stuff. So you tackle the go. The next thing you do is you tackle the no. That's KNOW. Look at your inbox and go through your emails and be like, all right, this is junk mail. This is spam. This one is a quick response. This is just a notification of what I need to know. But once you hit those emails that are actually laborious and intensive, and you've got to like open up an Excel spreadsheet or write a legal document, at that point, you migrate that email to the do component, which is a task list. I personally use Asana. All my tasks go in there. I'm talking professional and personal. Like if I need to do laundry or go get groceries or shave, that's going on that task list, right? So when you've got things this structured in your workday, or even your entire day, you're able to accomplish so many things. Like, don't get me wrong, like with all these projects that I'm working on, I still have fun going to play pool or kickbox, or I lane swim as well. But you know what? I watch a lot of TV too. Like that fits in there too. So I follow Cody Sanchez a lot, which is an online business influencer. She gave like the top 7 or top 10 things to make your business successful when it's focused around people. And one of the things is a clean calendar. If you cannot clean your calendar, you cannot clean your mind. And if you cannot clean your mind, you're not going to be able to accomplish the things you want to.
All right. Well, I just got a whole bunch of tips off of that. That's amazing. I love it. I love that. Well, so let's talk a bit about franchising. So you've been in franchising for some time now. You're super plugged into the industry. Like you're someone that everyone likes to talk to about franchising. So what do you think franchisors should be thinking about these days, Robert? You're on the cutting edge.
Yeah. You know what? I think franchisors need to be thinking about something that actually really isn't that cutting edge as you may think. On the subject of this pixie dust, there's a lot of buzzwords out about artificial intelligence and all, whatever it is. That's not, in my opinion, what they need to be thinking about. The statistic is something like only 10% of franchisors will ever hit 100 locations, or
really?
Even a worse statistic than that. There's so many franchise systems out there, and they struggle, And I think the reason they struggle is because there is a digression between what they want and what they need. Okay. Basically, every franchisor wants more locations. For a number of reasons. Maybe, they're building a legacy, or they want to make a change, or they just want to collect that franchise fee, which we all know isn't profit. That gets consumed, but a lot of them are banking on that to survive. So they're selling franchises as much as they can. They're looking for the next fran dev strategy, the next lead gen strategy. They're hustling out there, all this sort of stuff, just so they can get to royalty self-sufficiency, so they can get to 25, 50, 100 locations. That's all they're focused on. That's what they want. But what they actually need, where they need to focus, is the success happiness and profitability of their current franchisees, because those are the people that are going to spread the word. Those are the people that are going to open up multiple locations and build that unit count that you want. And focusing on the happiness, success, and profitability isn't just showing up with a box of donuts and saying, hey, how's it go? Like, you got to dive in there. Your business partners, for all intents and purposes, your co-CEOs of that particular location. So when the going gets tough, you got to work together. When things are great, you got to work together. And that involves heavy duty support. I'm not talking like a 24-hour hotline where they can just call you and then you can brag to everyone, yeah, we support our franchisees. This is active business coaching, where you go in there and you proactively create plans to build a business rather than being reactive and just trying to solve their problems only. This is the creation of peer performance groups, so your franchisees can interact with each other and share their wins and successes and figure out how to grow. This is having a stable franchise advisory council or marketing council or whatever it is. The franchisors need to focus on the sustainability of what they have and not just crazy growth. And that's in the industry. I'll tell you, about a decade ago, there was this massive digression between those two things. But now I'm slowly seeing it, especially from the veterans and the suppliers and vendors. They're seeing that those two need to come to a confluence. It's the new franchisors that will come in and they'll be super arrogant and they'll be like, listen, if I just write an ops manual and sell it to somebody, step and repeat, they'll be making buckets of money. And I'm like, no, you gotta... Anyways, I can rant about this for hours.
Well, it's interesting you say that. So obviously we work with our fair share of franchise systems, and the ones that are successful, I find, are the ones where they're putting the needs of their franchisees first, right? In fact, we work with some franchise systems that don't even use the term head office. They call themselves the support office. And
that's what we do. We're the support center.
There you go, right? And well, even that's a mental shift, right? So you're not the head office. You're supporting your franchisees. And I've always said franchising is such an interesting model because you've got these in-house entrepreneurs effectively, and it's a shared ecosystem where obviously as the franchisor you have knowledge and you have a brand and you have systems and technology, but the franchisees are the ones doing the on-the-ground work, and they know their market and they know their customers. Like, I totally agree that if you can make all that work together where it's in harmony, that's where the magic happens.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Now, on the other hand, I think we've all seen where that's not in harmony.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, listen, don't get me wrong. Sometimes there is a mismatch, right? Like, these two people shouldn't be in business together. They're not a fit, But assuming there is a fit and they are a match, right? The franchisor is the leader. And the way a leader becomes a good leader is by creating and fostering other leaders. And that's what you need to build in your franchisees' leadership so they can disseminate that to their staff and to the customers that come in, and they need to lead by influence rather than manage by authority. There's the quote of the day: lead by influence rather than manage by authority.
Yes. Don't smack him in the face with the FDD every day is what you're saying.
As soon as you do that, all trust is gone. Even if you need to reference the FDD or the franchise agreement, sending like an email that sounds like a lawyer drafted it, that doesn't work. You need to call them and have like a man-to-man chat. Be like, Steve, listen, you're screwing up here, man. I'm doing whatever I can. I'm going above and beyond. Can you fix this? If you can fix it, what's the plan? Or we just spoke about a plan and you haven't executed. Listen, man, you're tying my hands here. I've got to defend the brand for everyone that invested in it, assuming that there's, a marketing issue, or we're putting a ton of resources in and you're not paying the bills. We need to progress through the regular order of things and not just be a jerk and say, listen, Mr. Lawyer over here is going to come down on you like a bag of bricks.
Sack of doorknobs, right? Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. No, and how many things can be solved through a phone call, right? And I love what you're saying because you're humanizing it, right? And you're, as you said, you're working together and you're effectively coaching these people to be better leaders.
Totally. And when you think about it, I mean, the the view that the whole world has on franchising, I mean, positive or negative, but the way the world believes the model works is somebody's created a proven model and they're selling it to people to replicate it, right? And they're just sort of sitting on their pedestal. But what's actually happening here is you're not doing that. The sale of that franchise system or the awarding of that franchise to somebody is the conduit. What you're in the business of is almost building a cult. You know, when you choose to franchise your business, you hand your corporate location over to a manager, and now you are a cult leader. What are you going to do to lead this cult? Cult has a lot of negative, connotations to it, but there's like, the thing is, you're creating a group of people that work together to achieve the same goal. You know, that's what you're in. And building a cult is not easy. If you look at all the negative cults that are around there, there's a lot of brainwashing that goes into it and things like that. But even if you're going down the positive route of building a cult, like, there's buy-in that you have to build, there's support that you have to do. That is your full-time job. You got to have people to maintain the business model, to build all the tech infrastructure. You're the one building this sort of ecosystem here. And as a CEO, in my opinion, a CEO only has 3 jobs. The first job is to increase stakeholder wealth. So that is the wealth of the shareholders as well as the franchisees and anyone who has any degree of investment in this. Make people wealthier. The second one is to decide and plan and execute on the future of the business. What's next? How do you change things? How do you grow? And the third one is to build and maintain the culture. Those are the only 3 things that a CEO should be doing. Now, those are loose definitions, so you can kind of put stuff into those 3 buckets, but that's where you should be focused on.
I love it. And the culture one seems to be the one that a lot of people lose sight of, to your point, right? Your analogy of a cult is interesting because that's a shared vision, shared values, right? A culture, and even shared language, right? How you talk about things and how you view things and what's a success versus not a success. It's interesting.
I mean, what's the root word of culture?
Cult. I have never made that connection before. And also, you are the first person I've ever talked to that's called a franchise system a cult. So congratulations on that. Well done.
Okay.
Well done. That's now going to be in there pretty much forever.
Yep.
Every time I talk to someone about franchising, I'm going to be thinking about Robert and cults now. Perfect.
There we go. I've got the buy-in. Now follow me.
I love it. Well, so Robert, you got lots on the go. Like, what's next? Where's that growth for you? Where are you pushing towards?
Well, to quote my late friend Ryan Smokin, it's global domination, my friend. You know, that's the thing is, you know, every franchise system always talks about growth and global domination and things like that. But the reason why that hits home for us specifically is because, you know, Ctrl V is not this massive recognizable brand like McDonald's, for example. And the product / service that we sell isn't something that's massively recognized like a hamburger or a coffee, right? So we're kind of, you know, setting the pace, setting the trajectory and the runway for the VR industry. Now, when I say the VR industry, I don't just mean location-based entertainment like a physical place that they can come to, like Ctrl V. VR is getting more and more adopted in training, in healthcare, in sales, right? But in order for this to be adopted, somebody's got to take that lead and get people exposed to it. Now, problem is there are some rough players in this industry. So when somebody goes in and experiences VR for the very first time, they could have a horrible experience and they may never want to go back to it. They may never want to implement it into their day-to-day lives or in their profession. So for us, it's important to have this global domination because we've got to be there in order to make sure that everyone's first-ish interaction with VR is actually a good one so that we can help foster that community of the content developers, the hardware manufacturers, the franchise business owners.
I love that. Well, and it is interesting how you describe the business because everyone thinks VR. The first thing they think of is video games, clearly, right? They're thinking of like Ready Player One sort of situation here. But I love your view of it where it's so much more, right? In medicine, VR is a big deal, right? Because you have specialized skills that, you know, might exist one place, but how do you transfer it to another part of the world, right? So
Yep.
it's the educational aspects are actually quite incredible when you start to think about it.
And you know what? Parents can't afford VR at home, regardless how cheap it gets at Best Buy. That's a whole other ramble we can get into. And schools can't afford this either. So people need an avenue to go do this. Welcome, Ctrl V.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? Well, you've already mentioned it. You have school trips coming there, and like it's tip of the iceberg for sure.
Yeah, it's, you know what? It's so exciting. Like just being in the industry and seeing all the developments that are happening, like I start salivating, chomping at the bit, you know? I'm like, let's go. You guys are missing out, you know? And I'll get a call from a franchise lead who's like, you know, I'm looking at this other brand, you know, they got this big, massive arena and they wear the computer on the back and they march around with a gun and they shoot zombies. And I try to be clear to them. I'm like, do you understand that you're investing in a glorified laser tag? All it's good for is walking around with a gun, shooting zombies. Sure, you might change zombies to dinosaurs or whatever, but it's the same thing. How's that model going to work when it's time to implement experiences like swimming with whales or hanging out with gorillas or going, which is hugely popular at Ctrl V, or doing educational stuff or escape rooms? You know, you're building a one-trick pony over here. Come over to Ctrl V where we've already sorted this out.
Oh, I love it. Any last words of wisdom you want to share, Robert? Not to put you on the spot, but I guess I just did. Anything you'd want to share based on what we've talked about, or do you want to take it in a whole nother direction?
You know what? I think, yeah, here's a word of wisdom that I love to share with everyone. You know, when in business or school or anything that's going on in life, things start to get difficult. You know, and a lot of motivational speakers or people along those lines will tell you, you know, it's always darkest before the dawn. You know, things will turn up, like, you know, there's no way but up, you know, that they're trying to give you that motivation. But the one thing that I'd like to say is make sure you're prepared for the fact that rock bottom also has a basement. Things get worse. There are so many people around this world that have a much more difficult life. You know, people who are homeless, people who are malnourished, and you're worried that you may not be able to sell a franchise. You know, things could get a lot worse. And for some people, they do. And so having that grit and moxie to hustle forward is important, but it's also important to understand what drives your hope and to have the resilience to get through that.
Well said. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, and thanks for taking the time out of your very busy schedule. Thanks to everyone who joined us today to watch and listen. If you haven't done so already, I encourage you to click the like and subscribe to stay up to date with all of our episodes. Thanks to everyone again for your time. And Robert, really appreciate the talk. It was a good time.
Stay frosty, my friends.